All right. Hey, good morning, folks. I'm going to be doing DM stuff today for my Spelljammer Eberron campaign. So give me a second here to check my signal to make sure that I'm coming through okay. I'll go through my intro spiel, and then we'll get to work here for maybe 100 some odd minutes. So let's see where we are at right now. Mic check. Mic check. It sounds like it's coming along okay. Excellent. Okay, so let me go ahead and copy pasta. It's going to take a few moments for me to boost my signal across the internet, so I'm going to attempt amusing you with my stories of glory. So give me a hot second here while I get this set up. And okay, so here's my intro spiel. My name is Theurgy. Hey, I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, and I publish them online. I've been focusing attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, creating content for that since the release of Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica back in 2017. We just completed Spelljammer Combat and Exploration, a document that I've been working on since the release of the Spelljammer's Adventures in Space setting that Wizards created for 5th edition in August 2022. And hold on. Making sure all my bits are current. There. Cool. So now that book is published, we had been working on... I've just started a new campaign for my own team. I've been DMing D&D in various editions since 1987. And so... currently, we're my work team is a hold on, bop. There we go. Okay, cool. I've got all my stuff straightened out here. Hold on, before I proceed any further, let me just say I've just posted that I'm live on X Twitter. My handle is at Theurgy if you want to follow me there. Best way to help the channel grow is to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Thank you, new subscribers today. That's excellent. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications. I stream artwork that I produce and game production. Here is a full playlist of the current Spelljammer eberron Asteroid Belt campaign development. Here is a link to Spelljammer Combat and Exploration. Here, I'll just click through to that for you here. See, it's already gained a best sales status with copper medal, and it's currently #1 on DMsGuild. So check this thing out if you're interested. And so I've been an Eberron enthusiast basically since 2000. I want to say since 2006 is when I adopted it as my home, and I've played it through 3rd edition during some Pathfinder Cypher system, and now into 5th edition. And so I've spent a lot of time there, but I've also been a big Planescape Spelljammer enthusiast as well over the years. So I've always been blending Eberron, Spelljammer, and Planescape together. I've talked about toroid planar travel in the past, which I'll probably do again in the future. But right now, we have just started a new campaign. My home table is we did a time travel campaign from level 1 to 20, and that was finished. Now we're shifting gears, and we're moving more into a guild campaign. It's a platoon style West March game. I've got 6 people, but typically only have maybe 4, possibly 5 people that show up to play at any given session. And this is the 16th episode of the development of this campaign that we're currently playing now. This is the world of Eberron. This is an orbit, like a ring that surrounds Eberron, right? We call it Hub. It's where the population center for the asteroid belt mining campaign, guilds, and the embassies between the different organizations that perform the mining operations communicate and work together. It's a neutral place where there's no combat. It's only negotiations and potentially espionage missions that could be performed there. Each square is 10,000 miles. Outside of Hub is where the asteroids are at. This region here is controlled by Droam. This location separated from Eberron completely. And further out in distant orbit is Sarlona, where the Sybaris crystals are at. They collect those things like candy. Dargoon has a territory, as well as the elves of Aranel. Dargoon and Droam are building mining operations, just like our team is doing. Our team controls only these 3 territories, A, B, and C currently. There are other guilds that inhabit the region around, which I'm going to spend some time fleshing out today, probably. Sarlona is only interested in collecting the crystals of Sybaris to increase their psionic power. They left Eberron for orbit because there is more psionic power to be found out here than there is there, so they can bring their dreams to reality quite literally and more efficiently than they could on the planet of Eberron. Aranel are currently in the process of exploring space, so they have their territory here is expanded with living ships, and they gather up asteroids and seed them with new world trees that sprout out and grow into basically orbiting platforms of living plants that they can commune with. And when they grow large enough, they'll either expand their territory or launch one off into deep space to go colonize a different area, to start setting up elven franchises throughout cyberspace. The team is a fledgling organization starting at level 1, so they start with 3 territories. The orbit of Eberron. So the campaign background, for those that don't know already and are want to find out more about this, you can check out previous episodes. But essentially, the way that my campaign's been running for the past 12 years is that Eberron was detonated to stop the Dalcor from converging with Eberron and unleashing nightmares across the world. The only solution that the Gatekeeper Druids had was to shunt Eberron out of alignment. So the only way they could create enough energy to do that was to detonate the core of the planet. So they did. That was 40,000 years ago. So the morning in this campaign isn't a block where Sire used to be. It's where the core of the Earth used to be, or the core of the planet was. It was all blown out. So all the mantle and core and a lot of the crust of the planet of Eberron got flung out into far reaches in orbit beyond what's on this map here. And but some of it stayed closer. So what asteroids were still inside of the planet orbit is what became the asteroid nations of the Corvair nations. Like Karnath has their own asteroid, Breland has its own asteroid, Thrain, Aundair, the Eldin Reaches, the Demon Wastes. These are all different chunks of rock that are in orbit around the planet. Zendrick exists in a lower orbit closer to the core of the planet. Arganessen is in low orbit closer to the core of the planet. The core of the planet is a wild magic furnace that the closer you get to it, the higher level wild surge magic effects can happen. Like if you go all the way to the core, your wishes can come true. You can literally cast Wish at the core of the planet, but you have to survive getting there. It's incredibly dangerous. The further out in orbit you get, the more psionic it becomes, closer to the crystals. And then once you pass out of the map, you're basically in deep Kyber. Most of the world was blown out beyond orbit. The Gatekeepers have spent the last 10,000 years basically drifting out into the outer reaches of the system to collect pieces of Eberron and then send them back to Eberron to slowly have its gravity recollect all of the rocks and reform the Earth. They know this is going to take tens of thousands of years to do, but this is what the Gatekeepers do. So occasionally asteroids will be lobbed from deep space by the Gatekeepers back towards Eberron. The Gatekeepers don't care if any of the nations are affected by this, if it destroys anybody. All they want to do is collect all the pieces back to reseal and build the planet so they can perform some sort of mega ritual to rebirth Eberron and in a safer space so that it can't be affected by the nightmares in the future, like Dalcor. Sarlona worships Dalcor. That's where their dreams come from. The inspired are, is Kori. The Kori is like the Dal Core. They're just a different type of creature, and so they collect the psionic crystals and basically build kind of like the Arenals build with plants. Sarlona builds with psionic energy and crystal. So they are separating themselves further and further from Eberron, not really interested in what's going on with the humanoid races here. They want to ascend to a dream state that will allow them to basically disintegrate out of orbit in time, but that could take tens of thousands of years as well. So all these scattered pieces of Eberron are in orbit. The deeper to the core of the planet in the mantle, the higher value metals there are. Of course, underneath the surface, it was all Kyber. So Kyber is the Underdark that connects to the lower planes of existence, the darker energies, Dalkir, stuff like that. The Abyss, demons, evil. So when the world breaks apart, the Kyber refocused itself to be at the core of all asteroids. So the surface of an asteroid is like the surface of Eberron. You can walk along it, some that has vegetation, wildlife, whatever. But as you dig underneath the surface, that's when you unearth the Kyber, and there's abominations, aberrations, monstrosities, elemental creatures, things that might want to kill you. And so that's also where all the metal is. So you have to dive, you have to dig into the rock, deal with the monsters that might be there, and then extract the rock. And these things are all in orbit around the planet. So as a rock gets chewed up, eaten away, and processed for mining, it slowly disintegrates. But the gatekeepers are constantly launching rocks back towards Eberron, and they have a lot of minerals in them. So they know this, whatever. It's just part of Eberron, so they're sending it back. And so new asteroids are constantly coming into orbit, in close orbit around Eberron. So as you chew up an asteroid, it's naturally just going to be replaced by whatever's next. So the asteroid is a swirl, the asteroids spin around the planet, but the characters have a geocentric position, a fixed geo, or I had problems with this last time. Their position in orbit is fixed, so rocks flow through it like a river. And while it's in their territory, it's their rock, so they can process and do whatever they want with the rock while it's there. And once it's done, it's going to keep moving. So if they can chew it up to a point where it disintegrates, it just disappears and it's gone. But if they can't fully process it and it moves out of their zone, then it's in open territory, or like here, if it moves into Droam's territory, then they mine it. And if it moves out of Droam, like out in these outer reaches, it could get to Sarlona. Maybe they want to process it. But it's going around and around, and everyone gets to pick at it until it's completely gone. So the team starts with these 3 territories, and it costs resource points to purchase territories. At the lowest level of orbit, it costs 1 you invest or permanently allocate 1 resource point to that territory. They can give up a territory to get a point back, but now they can't safely mine that. They could mine it, but it's not their territory, it's contested land, so they'd be pirating or poaching that area. Or it's like this is an open space between Droam and the guild and the team's guild. So if something moves out of B and C, they've basically got another shot in open territory to dig at it before it falls into Droam's territory, at which point they would be poaching Droam's guild space, and they could be attacked, and no one would help you if you're invading somebody else's territory. But that territory has to be able to defend itself. So the team is kind of stuck between the elves and Droam, picking at whatever comes through. And so occasionally rocks will pass through Arenal. They'll pick at it. They won't be able to get all of it, and here it is. Sometimes rocks come in at a sharp trajectory because they're being launched towards Eberron by the gatekeeper. So occasionally you'll be able to find a chunk of rock that's been completely unmolested because it comes into orbit straight away at you. But you got to be able to chew it up and get rid of it before it hits Eberron. Otherwise, it could kill a bunch of people. So that's an issue that they have to deal with. Currently, the team has just finished these things process in 10-day cycles. So every 10-day, there's an adventure that the team performs as an episode, like on a TV show, an episodic TV show. This week, the team were acting as dungeon delvers, going into a rock that had platinum ore in it to find what monsters are in there, to nullify them, so that they can make it safe for their miners to go in and extract the platinum ore while it's still in orbit. That's in position C. That's where they focused their attention. They completed the mission, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. But they have territory A, B, and C that they control. So A and B are just being mined like usual. Area C had some unusual activity that they needed to go in and resolve as their adventure. And now that they've had a chance to resolve the adventure, they pull out. They can debrief with the guild, and then the rest of that 10-day, this time period, this block of time that they're inside of right now, they then get to extract resources from A, B, and C to add to their resource pool to then spend on points. Low orbit, they invest 1 point to gain a territory. Second strain orbit, it costs 4 points to. They have to invest 4 resource points to be able to secure that territory. Every territory they gain has to be attached to or adjacent to another territory, not catty-cornered, but directly adjacent to, like here or here, but not here or here, because those are diagonals. So they have to click in straight wise to be able to claim a territory. So 1 point here for a territory, 4 points here for a territory, 9, 16, 25. And then at that point, we're looking at, it could be 36 and then 49 and then 64, 81, and 100 to be way out here, 10 territories away from hub. Or you could hop through hub and open a territory here and here, here. Hub acts as a free space for you to build on top of. But we need to have other territories come into the equation, which is I want to spend a few minutes here building out new territories while we talk shop. So if you here, let's do this. Let's just build out a territory like that. We'll do that. We'll make this a territory. And yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to make this a territory. If you're butt up against another territory like this, you're asking for trouble. So these catty corners here, these aren't technically encroaching on each other's territories at all, because you have to click in horizontally and vertically into a new square. So like these are touching, but they're not actually affecting each other. This is an open space between these territories. Then it's a buffer zone. You can see there's buffer zones between all these different territories, and the team is trying to squeeze their way in. You don't have to maintain a buffer zone, but it increases the likelihood of conflict, of people attempting to poach and pirate from each other as they brush up against each other's zone, right? Like, that kind of makes sense, yeah? Let's see. 1, 2. The team has a third. Let's do it like this. All kind of clicks together like Tetris pieces, but I want these things to, I want unusual little territories. Because these can, like, you can trade and sell and steal different territories from different guilds. And but if you try to steal a territory from another nation state, Like these territories are all Corvair based guilds. They're eating up the lion's share of space over here. Sarlona separated themselves on purpose, so they've basically surrendered free access to hub. They have to maneuver through these mining territories to be able to get to hub to negotiate with the Corvarian nations, which they really don't care to do. They're not interested in doing so. They have an embassy, but it's been left basically abandoned for over 100 years at this point. Let's see here. I'll probably have to drop in some color to make these things interesting. Dargoon has a decent hold here. They're respecting a buffer with Aeronel, and so they're going to be able to grow out this way as much as they want. I mean, there's no limit to how far out you can go into orbit if you want. It's just a matter of how developed have you gotten. So this is going to be a very powerful merchant house here. I call them the Earswifts. Here's one, here's two, here's three. Three different guild organizations that currently exist. These two fractured. They were the same guild. I don't have names for many stuff yet, but number one I know is going to be Earswifts, and I'll come up with other names for these things probably during the week. But these are the three Corvarian guilds that are. I can actually. This is an easy pickup here. So these territories are open. These territories are open. These territories are open. But otherwise the team can grow out this way. And if they grow into this space, basically they're going to be sandwiched between the Earswifts and Droam. And there's going to be a lot of hostility there. If they want to grow into this neutral space, there's potentially a lot of hostility from Dargon and potentially from Aeronel. Aeronel's been generally friendly, so it's okay that you brush up against them, but Dargoon and Droam are a lot more hostile. So whatever this rift happened here, number 3 is going to have to be fairly buddy-buddy with Dargoon to be able to sustain that, while 1, 2, and a little bit of 3 are courting disaster with Sarlona. If they start claiming these adjacent territories, they're going to potentially have conflicts. It could well be that 3 and Dargoon are potentially forming an alliance to expand the territory as a whole. Could be that this is like a war merchant that is looking at developing and integrating with Dargoon to become its own, like a vassal, as a merger sort of agreement thing, which would give Dargoon a huge chunk of territory here. So that's an interesting point of conflict with the Corvair hub space and Dargoon Nation and Sarlona. That's eating up a good chunk. Yeah, so that's the general territory where we're looking at here. So the team, okay, so we if you check the previous episodes, the team, they delved into the rock. They found there were some miners that had been killed that was the initial scouts. They had been they were found dead with moss growing out of their mouth and their eyes. So the team was really the team was recruited to find out why did they die, go in and find out what happened to them, and then come back alive and report to us what's going on. So they do, and they find this moss is carpeting different caverns that are inside of the interior of the rock, and they find these bugs. The bugs have a symbiotic relationship with the moss. They haven't figured out the full relationship there, but they coexist in the same biome. The moss can infect the bugs, but as they delved deeper in, they found that the bugs ate rock but didn't eat metal ore. So as they got further and further into the rock, closer and closer to the nest of these roach-like insects, more and more platinum ore was being exposed, just like big chunks of it. It's like, Jesus, they just take a pickaxe and just peel off a big piece of mostly pure platinum that had been basically all the rock had been licked off of it. So it had like this weird amorphous honeycomb sort of look where the pockets of ore intermixed with the carbon of the rock. And as the bugs ate the rock, it exposed the platinum. So it's like, this is pure platinum. So they pick off pieces like, if we can, and they were like, if we can somehow gain control over these bugs and use them as a biochemical resource to basically liquefy rock, we'd be able to extract resources from these rocks much more effectively, right? That's amazing. So while they're exploring, they found the corpse of a dwarf miner, and not dwarf, an elven miner, and it had been infected and covered over and killed by the moss. It had stealth boots, like boots of elven kind, that allowed you to move quietly, so they ganked those for research. They ganked a bug to research the bug. They ganked the moss to research the moss. The moss releases a poison spore that, I guess, as a defense, and it infects bugs and people, and it kills you. It also absorbs light. So when they get, and the bugs, they're like fireflies. Their abdomens emit light, which would get absorbed by the moss. But if the moss got too close to the hive, the light from the bugs overwhelmed the moss and would kill it. So there's this weird balance that the bugs that they found out in the moss weren't emitting any light and were being consumed by the moss. So the closer they get to moss, the more likely the bugs are to be killed, consumed, grown over, and then spread more moss. So there's this weird balance inside of the asteroid where the bugs needed to eat rock, but the hive was cleaned out. It was just platinum. So it wasn't useful for them to be able to be there. They had to continue expanding out, eating the rock from the inside out. But to do so, they have to get into the spores, and the spores would kill the bugs. So there's a balance point between the size of the bug colony and the density of moss surrounding that area. The elf corpse that they had a flute. And if they played the flute, it sounded like the noises that the bugs make, and they responded to it positively, effectively charming them. But while they were exploring this space, the asteroid tilted, and so the floor became the walls, and they got tumbled. They had to grab hold, and at one point, whoever was holding, one of the characters that was holding the flute, had the choice of either being able to try to keep using the flute to keep the bugs charmed and non-hostile, but would have to make a check to see if he could climb up to get out of the pit that they were in. Because it tilted, their access point was now a vertical. There was a rock that was covering access to this cavern because the miners didn't know what killed their scouts, so they wanted to seal it up. And the team had pickaxes, right? So like, if it's time to come out, pick at the rock, and they'll hear the tick, 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 and they'll know to come out. So they'll roll the rock out and they can get away. Now it's tumbled, so it's a vertical surface, and the rock is basically plugging it like a jar. So they had to climb up vertically up the moss to be able to pull out their pickaxe and tick, tick, tick at the rock, and all the miners up above would then be able to roll the rock out of the way, and they could climb out and be out. So that's what they needed to do. So the guy that was holding, the character that was holding the flute, he had the choice of stop playing the flute and climb up without risk, or continue playing the flute and try to climb basically one-handed. And he chose to try to climb one-handed. Everyone else was ahead of him towards getting out, except for one of the players was further down below. So he rolled a natural 1 and dropped the flute while hanging onto the wall. And the other character that was further down attempted to grab at it and also rolled a natural 1. So the flute basically pinged off her hand and then stumbled off, like flipped off and disappeared into the core. I shit you not, 2 1s each. It was amazing. It was team defining. I tell you what, I don't know how much you pay attention to team building, but it's something that I pay a lot of attention to as a DM, like how characters, the players, are interacting with each other to see who has natural aptitude and takes on like a leadership role, who is agreeable and disagreeable in the team, who keeps quiet. So the way that I manage my table, I have to make sure I'm spending time in addressing each person. And we have 5 people at the table. it takes you have to keep people engaged. So the way that the adventure rotates is we're using basically first edition rules, where you've got some movement and you can take an action and then you're done, move on to the next person. But we're using D20 ability checks to resolve everything on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a DC of 4, 10 being a DC of 31. So it's basically difficulty times 3 plus 1 is the DC, the difficulty check that you need to make. So they're first level characters. Most of the stuff that they're doing is like difficulty 3, 4, and 5, which is like a die roll of D10 is a difficulty of 10, 13, or 16. That's roughly the range that they're operating inside of. A roll of 16 is difficult for a first level character. And they're using all of their different ability checks, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, to make different checks. And the way that the game works is that we have them blocked off. You can see this in previous episodes, but we have power, which is strength and charisma. There's skill, which is intelligence and dexterity. And there's grit, which is constitution and wisdom. And so they can... when they make it, whenever they're trying to do something in the game, they make an ability check of one of those three. We're using proficiency dice, and at this level, their proficiency die is a D4. So you roll a D20 plus your ability bonus, or penalty if it's penalized, and then you get to use your effort once. And so every time you make a die roll, you choose between power, skill, or grit. And once you choose one, you can't use it again until you've used all three of them. And during those three, you can use effort once. Each character class, like the rogue espionage characters, they get free effort when they are observing objects. Delvers, or like rangers, they get to use effort for free whenever they're interacting with the environment. Warrior types get effort for free whenever they make attacks. Bard diplomacy characters get free effort whenever they are observing creatures. So they can use all the characters have gain free effort when they're performing specific tasks. Otherwise, they have that free floating effort die that they get to roll. So you roll through your power, skill, and grit in any order that you want, using either your strength or your charisma when you're doing a power roll, whatever makes the most sense for the narrative. Like if you're trying to intimidate somebody, you might be using your power charisma to intimidate them, so that's the die roll that you're going to make. And maybe if you have effort available, you want to apply effort to that die roll to have a higher result, rolling with proficiency. And so we set the difficulty. That gives them the difficulty class that they have to roll, and then they have to choose which aspect of their ability scores they're going to make the roll against. And once you use grit, you can't use grit again until you've used both power and skill. And then when you do that, your effort die refreshes as well. So and so each character has a turn, and then the world has a turn, which is the DM. I do something to you, which is like new bugs show up. They attack you as a swarm. Everyone make a defense, like make a body check. So you have your strength, your dexterity, and your constitution. If you've used your power and your skill already, then only constitution as your grit is left over. So that becomes your armor class saving throw, basically. It's like, I'm going to use grit to try to resist the attack of the bugs. And so you make your constitution die roll, and if that has a penalty, then that's all you get. Maybe you would have wanted to have your dexterity available during the body check because dexterity is your best stat. And maybe you had effort, so you'd be able to roll really well. But if you can't hit the roll, the difficulty class that we assign, like the difficulty of fighting the swarm, is maybe a difficulty of 4, which means you have to roll a 13 or better. And if your constitution has a -2 modifier and you don't have any effort available, then you're basically rolling a d20 -2 against a difficulty 13, which means you have to roll at least a 15 on a d20, and that's all you get. So for each degree of difficulty you miss by, you take 1 point of damage. So if the difficulty is 4 and you rolled what is effectively a 1, a 4, 5, or 6, then you're going to take 3 points of damage. You get 10 hit points per level, and it goes from level 1 to 5, and that's it. Level 1 is a D4, D6, D8, D10, D12. That's your proficiency dice. So as you gain levels, you have a higher proficiency die. And like Shadow Dark, whenever you gain a level, you can either like say you'll have a random table that you can roll to gain benefits. Like it might be like gain proficiency in like gain 2 proficiency dice, or like get a +3 to a specific stat. Choose a stat to gain +3, or like your power increases by 1, so both your charisma and your strength increase by 1. So we're increasing stats, we're adding more proficiency dice as characters gain levels, so that they have more opportunities to modify the die rolls that they have, and that's how characters advance. So they have horrible die rolls at level 1. So of course they screw up, they lose the flute, but now they know that if they take these, if they can somehow train these bugs, they can use them to extract ore. The only problem is that the ore, the asteroid that they found this in is in territory C, and every 10 day it rotates. All the asteroids move 1 square. So C is now going to be out of territory for them. If they spend 4 points, they could pick up purchase of this territory and be able to mine the asteroids. I mean, they could mine the asteroid here, whether they own the territory or not. The only problem is that they don't own that territory. So Droam could come in and decide that they want to mine it as well, and that could become a fight that no one's going to help you with unless you have allies that are willing to help you. It's the Wild West. It's free territory. You can get in a fight over a prospect of a rock, and no one's going to help you unless they want to. So the team has enough resources to be able to purchase that territory as their 4th territory, to be able to lay claim over that space while that rock is there. And they may decide to do so, but it'll cost them 4 resource points. So I'm going to start processing. As a DM, we're going to do some catch up here. So let's see, that's my dev notes. LTA guild activities, there we go. So they start off, they just finished their first 10-day cycle. So we just finished this one. We're now moving into the next cycle. So they started with 3 resource points. And here's how their industry breaks down. The commerce oversees mining. Lore oversees scrying, like clairvoyance, to see what rocks are. It's like psychic scouting. Loyalty is creating new contracts and recruiting, gathering new resources, and military is what kind of combat power can you put into a scenario. So like if pirates are attacking your territory, you would use your military resources to defend your territory. Commerce started off as 2. That's extracting rocks, which means that they can gather more resources more quickly. Here's the current territory. I'm learning how to this is a playtest campaign. If it turns out well and it continues to be fun for the players, I'll make it a Kickstarter, like DTRPG publication thing. But I have to playtest it long enough to make sure it works well, that it's fun. So I am literally right now figuring out how to process these things as a DM. What's the workflow to go through? What tools do you need? What's the best way to express them on paper? And how can I build tracking sheets for all this stuff so it's easy for me as a DM or as a game developer to share with other DMs how to process this stuff. So let's see. 10:30. I still have a solid hour of processing time. So they start off with 3 points, and again, it takes 1 point to gain a territory next to hub if it's open, and it takes 4 points to gain a territory 1 step away, but it has to be parallel to a territory you already own. So they could spend, and then at 3rd tier, it costs 9 points. So let's see. I had to make some die rolls, and I didn't really explain to them what the die rolls were, but they made some die rolls. The first die roll that they made was a D20 plus 2 plus D6 because they have 2nd rank in commerce. The rank goes from 1 to 5, which is a flat bonus. It's just a static bonus, plus 1, plus 2, up to plus 5. So you roll a D20 plus your rank in the industry. So commerce is 2nd rank, lore is 1st rank. So I had to make commerce checks and lore checks. The commerce checks is to verify during the 10-day that they were inside of, how well did they process the minerals that were in the asteroids that they were looking at. And so what they had was, they had 3 territories, A, B, and C. Territory A had a rock with silver in it. Territory B had a rock with some electrum in it, and then rock C had platinum, and this is where the adventure started, in the platinum rock. It had an unusually high amount of minerals remaining that made it very valuable, but it came with a complication, which was there's monsters inside of there, and they were killing the scouts, so they couldn't properly extract the ore. So they finished that mission, reported back what was going on with the ore. And so, let's see. So I had to make die rolls, and they're using a D6 plus 2 because commerce affects your mining operation. So how much ore you can extract, and the type of ore. Let's go to the Google Doc that I have to look at extraction. Here's the different types of the different type of ore that can be inside of an asteroid. Here's the difficulty to extract rock from it. The minimum DC you have to roll on your mining ability check to effectively extract wealth from it. And if you're successful, here's how many resources you can gain from it. If it's just a dead rock of carbon, it doesn't have any value, so you don't gain any resources for it, and you automatically can mine that rock into a pulp, which you occasionally need to do, like we were talking about earlier. If an asteroid is launched at you by the gatekeepers from afar, if it crosses through your territory, it's your responsibility to disintegrate that rock before it hits Eberron. So if it's just a dead rock, you can automatically successfully chew it up. Whatever, but the complication, the added challenge here is whatever your die roll is the percent of rock that you destroy in the process of mining the rock. So here's the extraction rolls that they made in section A, in territory A, which has silver in it, worth 2 points of resources if they can if they can succeed on their check, and they don't completely consume the rock, they gain 2 points. If they succeed the check, but it consumes the entire rock during that process, then I don't know what happens there. I haven't actually thought about that. I was thinking originally that there's 2 ways to go. Either they get... okay, so here's the problem. These rocks are in orbit in a counterclockwise rotation. So A is going... now that we've finished the first 10-day, we're now moving into the next 10-day cycle, and everything is going to move forward in rotation. So what's in C is now out of territory. What was in A is now in B territory. What was in B territory is now out of territory. So A, the silver ore, they rolled a 13 for that particular for that territory. And that territory had silver asteroid, and that silver asteroid had 15% of its 15% of it is silver. So they rolled a percentile die. They were able to extract. They rolled a 13, which means they extracted 13% of the remaining silver, and so 2% of the silver remains. In orbit. In position B, that was electrum, and there was 35% of the rock remained. So they rolled a 23, which means that they extracted 23% of the 35% remaining of the asteroid, which means that as that floats out of territory, they're leaving 12% of the electrum on the rock. But now it's out of territory for them. So you can mine rocks for free while they're in your territory. It doesn't cost any resources to do so. But if you want to mine a rock outside of your territory, you have to you invest points to purchase territories. You permanently spend those points, but they're only spent once. And then if you're attempting to, and that costs again 1, 4, 9, 16, 1, 4, yeah, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, and then maybe 25, 25, 25, or 36, 49, 64, 81, 100. It depends. We'll know how much that far realm cost should be once we start seeing how many points the team can accumulate to see what's a realistic cost to fatigue their resources to push out so far. So those are investments, and investments are expensive like that because you're permanently gaining that resource or that territory. But mining outside of your territory is a temporary thing. So you're not investing in these territories, you're paying to send a mining crew there to extract. So payments are different. It costs a payment of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. It's hard to say, depending on how it scales. So it's cheap, but only it only lasts 1 10-day. So like rocks that are in orbit here, right? So what'll happen? This rock goes to here. They could pay to mine it, and then it goes into Droam's territory. And if they want to pursue it, they're going to have to spend. They'll have to spend a point again to go in there, but they're now invading territory, which could get them killed. So that could create a conflict, which is a complication. If that rock comes out of Droam and still has ore on it, you could then go in and poach that territory because it's unclaimed territory. But the Earswifts might also be looking for stray rocks. They might have enough resources to always be picking at whatever's in this border realm. Dargoon and Aranel could be picking at these border territories. But if they both pick at it, it could potentially become a conflict. If they both want to pick the rock at the same time, that can spark a fight. So there has to be a diplomacy effect to determine who's going to have access to the rock. So it basically becomes a contested diplomacy check to see who will have claim on that rock based on the diplomatic relations between those two factions. So if the team attempts to mine this rock here out of their own territory and Droam decides that they want to pick at it too, that becomes a diplomacy check, which they could either leave up to their NPC guild as a single die roll, or the team could decide to lead a diplomacy mission as their next 10-day mission. You get one adventure per 10-day, and they choose which one it is. There could be pirates that they have to fight. There could be this disputed claim here that they want to perform a diplomacy mission to see if they can secure that rock for themselves. They could fail, and if they do, then they've basically that adventure was a loss. They don't gain the resources from that rock. Dargoon does instead. So diplomacy missions have their own risks. It's not your character getting killed. The risk is you losing the resource, or you losing the time that was spent trying to gain access to those resources. It's effectively like getting your character killed, but it's diplomatic instead of, literal. Hold on real quick. Good. That's sitting properly there. Guild territory. I'm going to make this rival factions here. Here, Swift. And then let's extract these. Yeah, this seems the proper way to do this. And then number 2. I'm gonna have to come up with cool names and stuff for what these things are. I'm not sure what they should be yet. We'll figure it out. 1, 2, and then 3. There. Now we have those 3 territories established. So those are rival factions. Here's the teams. Team. Guild territory. Cool. Okay, so we're going through the extraction process. Let's see. And then they rolled incredibly well here. I'm sorry. They rolled incredibly well here. This is something that's valuable enough that they might want to extract it. But let's see. Extract remains. Extract. Gains. Yeah, let's do that. Let's call it gains. So silver had a difficulty of 10. So they succeeded at extracting there. So they gained 2. We'll call that success. A Electrum has a DC of 13. And they rolled a 23, so that's also a success. And Platinum, which is what their last rock is. So they were successful. There was they had gains of 2 points because the silver was worth 2 points. Electrum, the DC was 13. I should put here. We should have territory A. I'm figuring, like I said, I'm figuring out how to. I'm figuring out how to express this and build a sheet out of it right now. Territory A, prospect, XYZ. This is how the game started, so XYZ, that's what it started with. So the prospect, territory A, orb 1, B is orbit 2, C is orbit 3. G. There. So these are hypothetical future orbits that they could have, but don't possess yet that they could purchase. So I don't have to do all that. I can just do there. So, and that doesn't exist either. So fuck off. All right. I'm just kind of mincing stuff right now. Scry score was whatever it was, but this is the start of the game. So 1, 2, 3. So when they scry a territory, they can determine what the rock is. Like if they roll really poorly here, I'm going to do a check. I'm going to roll and determine what these are. So maybe I need to put these in a different order. But silver and then resources that they can gain from it. The prospect is silver. Prospect is Electrum. Prospect is Platinum, which offers those resources. They extract, so I'll probably need to make like a chart table sort of thing out of this. Oh, wait. Prospect. Resources 2. Let's see. We call it maybe volume. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. We can call it that. then when they actually extract, that's what their die roll is. And then they have their gains. Thank you, Timely Timer. That's my 20-minute timer, telling me how I'm sitting. Gains are 2. So they succeeded with the die roll. Gains are 2. I should probably have the DC in there. That makes sense. Volume 10, 13, 19. Success and then failed. If they fail, they at least get 1 point. That seems. I think that makes sense. I don't think I've laid that out yet. So let's just set that up. At the end of each 10-day, roll a commerce check, industry check to determine success. Success equals gain a number of resource points based on source up to max rank of commerce. Fail equals resources extracted, but in escrow until complication is resolved. Huh. Is that true? Does that ring true with the results that we've been doing so far? They just made a die roll. So how would that play out? They found that there was this colony of bugs in there. They tried to make their check. They failed the check, which means that they didn't resolve the colony of bugs. They just found out what the colony of bugs are. So they aren't actually able to get the ore, because the bugs are still in the way and they don't know how to combat them. But the adventure allows the team to know what the problem is, but it hasn't been resolved yet. They could go back and attempt to kill or collect the bugs somehow as a personal mission that they themselves do. Or they could, Jesus Christ, and it's about to float out of territory, so they wouldn't actually. Whew. Okay, so that makes sense. Fail equals resources extracted but in escrow. They fail, but they still process 16%. So their gains are in escrow right now. 3. And 29% remains. So that stuff is accumulating. So if they are able to successfully extract the platinum, they know there's a ton of platinum in there. They've dug out 16. They have access to 16%. Like, they know what's there, but they didn't roll high enough to actually be able to get it, which is what their challenge is, because of the bugs. The bugs aren't actually resolved. So if they can go in and somehow resolve the bug threat, they would then have, they would have to be able to have control, because it's in sea and it's moving out, so it's going to be an open territory, which means it can be contested. So they've already done a lot of work trying to get the resources. They haven't succeeded in extracting them. The bugs are in the way that's preventing them from being able to extract it, and now it's an open territory where anyone can contest it. So what we do know is that they were successful in gaining both from Orbit 1 and Orbit 2. They successfully extracted the resources to gain 4. So now the team has a cumulative 7 resource points that they could spend or invest. They could choose to, when the rock floats out, they could choose to invest in purchasing this territory as D. This would become their 4th territory, which means that they'll always be able to have more checks while they're processing, which is a really good decision, but it's also expensive to do it. But if they choose not to do so and they just wanted to send in a poaching operation, they'd have to spend 2 points to do so, and those 2 points would go towards defending it and like everything that you need to do to be able to process that territory. Like A, B, and C have defenders. It has patrols that protect that territory from piracy. So if you have a complication in that territory, it could be something inside the rock or something outside the rock, which the DM is the one that chooses based on the status of the campaign. So if they want to continue pursuing this rock, it'll give them, they can either allocate it as a die roll to their guild to use, or they could go in and do it personally themselves. So how would that look? If they wanted to go in and deal with this rock themselves, that would be a second delving mission for them to then reassess and go back in. So this could actually be like a second session with the same characters, basically doing a follow-up mission. They would be completely healed. They'd be all refreshed. They'd basically be fresh new characters, ready to go. They could get a new loadout of spells. Basically, it's treated like as a long rest. Every 10 days, basically a long rest. So they can completely refresh, prep different spells, have access to different resources, pick up new gear from Hub, and be ready to attack this thing again. I suspect that's what they're going to end up wanting to do. So then it's a matter of, are they going to invest 4 points to purchase this as their 4th territory, costing them 4 of their 7? Or is this just a one-shot mission that they're going to pick up on because it is going to be adjacent to Droam, which could potentially increase hostilities from Droam because they're impeding on their territory? That's a risk they're going to have to take. They could choose to invest there if they want to. No one's going to stop them. They're going to purchase that land. But now it's always going to be contested with Droam. So I guess defending it would be, yeah, they would have a much higher chance of having military conflicts inside of at that border between 2 and Droam. I like that. I like that a lot. So I think that's probably where we're going to be at. But, you know, they failed the die roll. So that means that they don't get the resources from that one yet. They found the bug. They haven't resolved the bug. It's still a complication that they have to deal with. There's plenty of ore for them to be able to extract if they want. They just have to be able to invest the resources or spend the time doing so under risk. So I like that state of affair, as it were. Like their current state. They also made scrying checks to see what's going to be in territory for them moving forward. So we know that A, what was in A is now going to be in, because it's a counterclockwise rotation. We know what was in A will now be in B. B will now be basically out here in the void. They could invest a point to pick this up as D, and then another 4 points, so a total of, they have 7 points. They could spend 5 of them picking up these 2 territories and have a much larger block, which would allow them to accumulate resources quickly, but Droam is definitely going to see that as a threat. And I think that's interesting that they would. I think it makes a lot of sense that they would want to pick up those 2 territories. But they could also decide to pick up this territory. So they have a scry effect that's going on. And I'm checking. Please wait. scrying is a lore effect, so that's why they're rolling D20 plus 1 plus D4. Okay, so let's process what we know. Yeah, those are distinct possibilities. I can put this in in parentheses because that's how many points they would gain from it. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that they would continue the adventure, but now they have to figure out a way. Now they have to figure out a way to clear the bugs or neutralize the bugs, get them out of the way so that the mining team can actually go in and get the rock. If they had rolled a 19 or better, they would have been able to successfully extract the platinum, no problem. The horde is quelled. They were able to get their asteroid chunk, but now, in the time that they had, they were able to get 16% of it, leaving 29% behind, putting them in the same problem. This is escalated as a complication because they didn't succeed. So the complication is that there's a ton of material there for them to pick up if they can secure it. That makes a lot of sense. I like that. So now let's go down and process the next thing. This 17, let's see, 7, and then 17, and now they have a floating variable of 25. B is automatically, doesn't require a die roll because you already know what was in B from A. Since they know what was in A, that means they know what will be in B. They don't know what's going to be in A, and they don't know what's going to be in C now that the asteroids are rotating. So that's what they're doing here. They're scrying to see if they can determine what is in orbit. As a DM, I now get to determine what the prospect actually is. This is where my fun comes in. Man, this is a lot of fun. Okay, so prospecting. Let's go to our prospecting check sheet here. Orbit 1. So A is in orbit 1. We already know what's in B, so that's taken care of. Orbit A. A is in orbit 1. So I'm going to roll a d6 plus 2. So let's go to our favorite website. I'm going to extract this here. Let's go to random. .org. I'm going to roll a d6. I'm going to roll a d4 for the ore type. I rolled a 4. So let's look at our table of elements. A 4 is Electrum. Nice. So I know it's going to be Electrum, but they rolled very poorly on their scry check, so they might not know. This will be silver, and I already know RES, volume, extract, gains, remains. And then territory C is a second range orbit. Orbit 2 is going to be a D6. So let's go back to our favorite site, random.org, and we get a 5. And we know that mineral 5 is, whew, gold. Gold coming into orbit. Nice. I should probably put Scry here, because this is where the team starts to do stuff. X, Y, yeah, that makes sense. Z. I'll definitely have to make a table out of this. Like a tracking sheet of some sort. Making things is fun. So, scry. Yeah, because the DM knows what's there first. So, prospect makes sense. That's the prospect. Here's the resources that it has. Here's the volume of material that's in that can be extracted. Oh no, wait, I want to have that there. That's right. And here's the DC to get it. Scry score for what they need. Extract is what they got. Gains is their reward if they succeed. And what remains is the difference between the die roll and the percentage. So. Ugh, so that silver's coming into orbit for them, and it's just dog crap. Like, B is like a waste. But there's a lot of Electrum still in B shifting out of orbit for them, or shifting out of territory for them. So that would potentially be worth them grabbing after. Right, so let's do this. This is 17. 7, 17, and 25. Right. Prospect. It's going to be Electrum. We already know silver from A. We know the resources. I don't need parentheses around that. We know that Electrum has 2 resources. We know that silver has 2 resources. And we know that gold is what? 3 resources? Yeah. Hold on. Gold is 3 resources, yes? Yeah. So we know that silver A has 2% volume left. We don't know what the Electrum volume is, and we don't know what the gold volume is. We don't know what they've... we do know that they scried 7. So let's determine our volume. So Electrum is in... let's see... Orbit 1 is D6 plus 2 times 5 is the percent left. So let's go back to our favorite, yeah, D6, roll again. It's a 2 plus 2, that's 20. So we know that there's 20% volume remaining there. Gold is, it's in the second orbit. So it's going to be D6 plus 5. 4 plus 5, that's 45. Oof, man, 45%. Nice. That is a good chunk of change. They scried. Thank you, Timely Timer. How are we looking on time? Oof, 11 o'clock. Still have half hour-ish. Electrum is a difficulty of 13. Silver is a difficulty of 10. And gold is a difficulty of 16. So they scryed it at a 7. They automatically know what's here because it came from territory A. And they rolled a 17 here. Oh, okay. So 17 is successful. So that scry check that they're making is lore. That scry check covers knowing what the rock is and what's in the territory. If they don't roll the difficulty for the rock, they don't. They have partial information. They had to roll 13. They only rolled a 7. So they now have partial information about that rock, which means that either they will always allow them to will always allow them I need to figure that out. But this was high enough so they know that the gold is good. And there's no failing a die roll creates complications. And throughout the entire game, every time, if you fail the die roll, it creates a complication. So they succeeded the die roll here for gold, which means that the rock that's flying into territory C, they automatically know what it is. You always know what it is that you're trying to do, or you achieve what you're trying to do. It's always a yes but or a yes and. They're always gaining things. Like you successfully extract the rock, but you weren't able to take it home because of complications. Like the bugs are preventing you from actually being able to collect the platinum. If you can resolve the bugs, you can collect all of the resources. It's just they're waiting for you to get it. But you don't get the resources until you clear the threat. Like that's the complication. They successfully extracted. They were successful with the mining operation, but they can't actually get it because the bugs are in the way. So they kind of failed. It's there for them. The resources are waiting for them when they can succeed at actually taking it home. That's the complication. So the complication we have here with Electrum is that it's floating into orbit here from the elves, but there's a complication that they have to resolve. So I'm going to put an asterisk next to that. Let's see. So that asteroid is floating from territory A into territory A into territory B. They automatically know what it is, but we already automatically know what everything is anyway, and that doesn't mean that there's not a complication. Okay, so that's how that resolves. So yeah, the die rolls were relevant. So this is where we're at. So they only need 2 die rolls for each territory. What were they successful at extracting, and what's at the commerce roll, which is, did we successfully extract resources from that rock while it was in our territory, in that territory? And then the other die roll is your lore check, which is clairvoyant scrying to see what's coming into your territory. Do you have eyes on everything? No. In Area A, the vision is blurry. We're not sure of what's actually there to deal with. We know that in B and C, the die rolls they have were high enough that they were able to have eyes on it, and there isn't any obvious complications. So when they go in and they attempt to extract the rock, that's when they may find a complication. So like if they will, at the end of the next 10 day, all 3 of these territories are going to, this one has a complication. So something is going to prevent them from being able to freely mine it. At the end of the next 10 day, they'll be able to mine this one. They'll be able to mine this one. But for them to be able to mine this one, they have to resolve the complication. Which means they won't be able to get, they won't actually even be able to try to extract rack from it until they resolve the complication. Okay, and they can freely work on this one. They can freely work on this one, and the result of the extraction will determine if they ran into a problem while they were mining. That's how that works. This, they have a problem before they even get to start mining it. These are okay, but their die roll will determine if they ran into a problem while they were mining it. And as they gain more territories and make more die rolls, there's more potential complications that go along with the rocks that they're trying to mine. Or they could run into more complications while they're mining. And if they run into a complication while they're mining, they can't get it until they then resolve the complication. And it's up to them to determine if they want to go outside of zone to resolve this or purchase this as territory D. Right. This is all making sense. So this is where we're at in the progress right now. Them wanting to extract. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a point of separation here. This is a natural separation point here. These die rolls, these 2 die rolls for each territory is what creates all the adventure for the team. They don't necessarily have to deal with, they don't necessarily, like if they run into a complication like Droam is blockading a section of space that they want a territory, they would then have to perform a diplomacy mission, either as a spending resources to have their guild do it for the team because they have better things, the players have better things to do, or they decide to make it their own personal mission to resolve that diplomacy, and then that creates a social encounter, social exploration and combat. Those are the 3 types of encounters that you have. But there's also delving, which is dungeon delving. There's military, which is ship to ship or mecha combat or troops on the ground combat. It's combat. And then there's delving, which is going into an asteroid and exploring and potentially fighting creatures that are inside of the asteroid. So there's outside asteroids, there's inside asteroids, there's diplomacy dealing with other factions, and there's espionage, which is specifically trying to not deal with other factions or conflict or delving. So you can approach different complications with different types of adventure, which is up to the team to determine what type of adventure they want to have. So like if they, like for example, the if this complicate, I have, well, okay, so I have to figure out what this complication is with the Electrum that's floating into territory for them. So that's the last thing I'm probably going to be able to do, and then my day will be over, and then we'll be back on Monday morning to do more artwork. But for now, I need to determine what that complication is going to be. This is a complication in section A, and then they may have their own personal goal of keeping after this platinum. So I'm identifying this as a potential source of adventure, and I'm identifying this as a potential source of adventure. So that's where I'm putting these exclamation points here. And this is potential source of adventure, because they have the complication. So we're going to put quotations, we're going to put parentheses around that, because that's how we're determining. That's how we're indicating complications. Yeah, they can't even extract from here until they resolve that complication. And the problem is that if they don't resolve the complication, it's just going to move into section B on the next 10 day. That complication remains and is just going to shift into B. So they have to deal with it. Every complication can be dealt with, but the players can only deal with one complication at a time. So the team is either going to personally take responsibility of resolving the complication with the Platinum Rock, with the bugs they know about, or they're going to personally take responsibility for resolving whatever the problem is in Territory A right now. But they can't do both. They can decide what the complication. They can decide what the complication. Oh, I know what that complication is. Okay, so that elf, that elf spelunker that they found in the platinum ore, that was in Territory C, and that guy was dead, so he's unaccounted for. So the complication that they have right now is elf scouts discovered an elven warship is exploring the territory because they're potentially looking for their lost scout. The team knows that there's a lost scout. They don't necessarily know why the elves are exploring their territories, but they know that they're in Territory A right now. So while they're in Territory A, there's a potential complication there. So I'm going to use, for me to determine, as a DM, this is my method of figuring things out. I use D6s. I use one die as the ask and as the question, and I use the other D6 as the answer. And the answer is either yes or no. So I will do something like, are the elves that are in Territory A, are they looking for their lost scout? The question die will have a number, and if the answer is equal to or higher than the question, the answer is yes. If the answer is lower than the question, the answer is no. So if I roll a 1, it's always a guaranteed yes because I can't roll below a 1. I'll automatically get a 1 or better. If the answer is a 6, it's almost undoubtedly going to be a no unless my answer is also a 6. So I'm going to roll. I rolled a 2 and a 1. So the question 2 is, are they looking for a scout? The answer is 1. No, they're not. So that just got interesting. I don't know why there's elves there, but I do. Let's verify. Is it elves? I rolled a 2 and I got a 2. So the answer is absolutely, it's elves. We know that the problem is elves, but they are not looking for their scout. Are they poaching? The answer is 2, and the question was 2. The answer was 1. So they're not poaching. Are they pirating? 2 and a 4. The question is, are they pirating 2? The answer is 4. Yes, they are. Why are they pirating? Are they pirating because they know a scout has gone missing and they want an answer from the team? 6 and 4. So no, that's not while they're there. Are they pirating? Poaching is when they're actively trying to mine an asteroid in someone else's territory. Pirating is when they are attacking or blockading access to a territory. And so they're blockading that territory, but not because of the scout. That's weird. Why would they be blockading? That's weird. They're blockading. Yes, they're blockading. 4/6 confirms they're blockading. They're not doing it because of the scout. Are they pissed off at the team? 6 and a 6. Oh my god. Okay, so the team has pissed off the guild. That's kind of leading back to the scout. So what's up with that? Are they angry that the team isn't communicating with them? 2 and a 6. So that okay. So why wouldn't the team? The team has no reason to communicate with elves. So why would the elves think that the team needs to communicate with them? Is it because they think that the team has poached their space? 5 and a 1. So they don't think that the team has poached their territory. Do they think that the team offended them somehow? 3 and a 4. So the team has offended them somehow. This keeps leading back to the scout. 2 and a 1. It's not the scout. Weird. What is going on here? Do they want to expand their territory? So they're creating a false threat in territory A so that they could gain access to another territory? 5 and a 5. Okay. So yeah, they want to expand territory. And boy, why are they doing it with hostility? That's so weird. Why would they be? Yeah, they're definitely being hostile about it. Are they expanding territory because they want to try to take over A? 2 and a 2. Oh my god. They are attempting to actively steal territory A from the team. So there is a fascinating. They can't mine A because the elves are elf warships are blockading access. And are they mining it? No, they're not. They don't care about the mine. The electrum that's moving into zone here, they don't actually care about that electrum. Is it something that's coming around? 1 and 2. Something's coming through the elven territory that they care so much about that they're willing to steal territory from the team. So there's something moving. What's happening here is there's something here that is so important to them that they're willing to risk hostility to secure this territory. So when that asteroid moves out of their zone and into the team zone in 10 day 3, 10 days from now, that they're willing to risk war with the characters to secure that area. If the team gives up that territory, they'll regain their resource because they're surrendering that territory. That resource becomes open, so they could reinvest it someplace else. So it might just be that they have to shift from here and then instead take territory A here. Like, give them this and then move there. And that could be the result of what ends up happening. They'll have to abandon that resource. But they don't know why. The team doesn't know why that territory is being taken care of. They're not mining it. They know it's not being mined, but the team can't mine it. No one is bothering to mine it. That's not the elves' priority. They are securing A. Oh my god, that's fascinating. God, that's really fascinating. So whatever is happening in the elven territory, it's about to spill out. Are they also attempting to secure this area? That's a really good question. No. No? I'm going to override that. I'm going to say yes, they are. But is that the only 2 territories? 3 and 1. So yeah, these are the only 2. So they're attempting to expand their territory close to orbit to be here. So they are actively trying to push the characters over so that they can claim this extra spot of land. So they have elves pushing at them from clockwise, and now the team is probably going to attempt to expand clockwise and beat. So they could just surrender this territory altogether. Oh my god, that's really interesting. That's as far as I need to take. This is literally as far as I need to take this. So there are elves in Area A and Area B, or in these two zones here. So what could the team do to attempt to try to deal with the elves in Territory A? They could perform a diplomacy mission where they start an open conversation with the elves about, hey, what's going on? What do we need to do? And that could create a transaction where the elves, it'll be a die roll that they can either go in and start having conversations themselves as players to find out what's going on with it, or they could send an NPC envoy to have a diplomacy mission, which I think is probably what they're going to do, is just send in NPCs to get an answer, like, why are you doing this? What do you need? And so the elves will, depending on the die roll, the elves may outright just bribe them. It's like, hey, we'll give you an extra point of resource. Like, you give this up, you'll get your resource back for giving up Area A, and we'll give you extra resources as payment for losing that territory. Which the team might be like, fuck, that's awesome. Okay, no questions asked though. Like, okay, and does that mean you're eventually going to pinch B and C also? That could be part of the negotiation, that they'll agree to not pinch that off. So if the team goes in and decides to do diplomacy themselves, they're giving up on the Platinum Rock, and it'll then go into Droam territory. Or the team can deal with the rock and then leave that diplomacy a single check to the NPCs, and then I'll set a DC at the end of the next adventure, after, like, if they do decide to go after the rock, at the end of the rock adventure, at the end of the second 10-day cycle, they'll make their diplomacy roll dealing with the elves, and whatever that die roll result is will determine what the results are. So we'll need, over the next couple weeks, we'll need to, this next week, we'll update them. Like, this adventure is an update adventure to let them know all the things and bits that they could be doing, and then they decide to set themselves up to determine what type of an adventure that they want. They could, instead of doing a diplomacy adventure, they could do a military adventure where they try to push the elves out with combat force, which, if it goes wrong, they'll lose that fight, they'll lose the territory, and potentially start a war with the elves, which they will lose. Or they win and they push back the elves, but also potentially create war. They could do an espionage mission where they are not dealing with, they're ignoring the elves, not even trying to lay claim on them, but trying to sleuth and stealth to find out what's going on, which will lead them into elven territory. And then the last thing would be commerce, which is not currently on the table because there's no delve. So they could either do a diplomacy, military, or espionage mission in Area A. And then Area C is leading them out into open territory towards Droam, which they could then use it's already determined that would be a delve mission to actually deal with the bugs. They'd have a second chance to deal with the bugs and actually resolve them so that they would be able to gain the resources from that Platinum Rock. Ooh, this is working out nicely. This is working out really, really nicely. I really love where we're at right now. This is super cool. Ho ho ho. Okay, cool. So new loot, and then yeah. So we'll have resources. And new loot. And they're gaining a level. So we're going to do level up next session. And we're going to process their resources to show them that they extracted their wealth. And then present the 2 problems that they have to deal with. They'll then decide which problem they personally want to deal with. And they'll punt the other problem to be dealt with NPCs at the end of the next following 10-day session. So whichever adventure they choose from, that will be the next 3 or 4 weeks, however long it takes. It could take 1 week, 2 weeks, 3, however long it takes for them to resolve it. It gets resolved, and then we'll do another update. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Oh my God, this is exciting! I am so excited. This is a hex crawl sort of game where the hexes are moving. The team stays still, but the hexes move. So it's updating and providing new things that just constantly come to them. That's a problem, like the weather. And then they can decide to branch out themselves to go explore other territories if they want to. Oh, this is cool. I am legitimately excited about this. This is super, super neat. So we have our ideas about what's going on with the elves, that they're having some sort of blockade, but the actual adventure itself and the die rolls will determine whether it's something that we're going to dive into because they take on a diplomacy mission or espionage or military mission themselves against the elves, or they just backline that and I give them answers at the back end of it based on the result of their diplomacy check, which is going to use their loyalty score. So, and their loyalty score, their loyalty rank is only 1. So they'll roll a d20 plus 1 plus d4 versus whatever difficulty it is that I assign to the task from the elves, which will probably be a difficulty of maybe 5 or a 6. It'll be challenging. I expect them to lose. So I'm going to make it difficult because the elves vastly overpower the guild as it is. But I don't want to make it like a difficulty 10 because that's just not fair. They can't even roll that. At best, they can roll a 25. Like, that's their best roll. So that would be 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, 22, 25. That would be a difficulty 8, which is the absolute highest die result that they can make with their loyalty check. They can't, like, 25. That's their cap. So that would be basically a natural 20 and a natural 4 that they would have to roll to be able to hit that DC 25, which is unfair for me to do that. It doesn't always have to be fair. It just has to be difficult. I could make it unfair. I technically don't have to tell them the DC either. I could conceal that. But I could tell them this could be up to a difficulty of 10. You don't know how difficult it's going to be. They're going to make a blind die roll, and I'm going to know what the difficulty is supposed to be and what happens as a result of the degrees of success or failure that they have above and beyond. But I don't need to know that yet because they aren't actually going to be adventuring next session. We're going to be processing their level, updating the guild, and determining what their next courses of action are going to be. It's basically like a huddle session, which is perfect. Oh man, I'm excited. This is working. This is so working right now. So we're going to keep at this for, basically what's going to happen is I'm going to process 10 cycles. And at the end of the 10 cycles, we're going to do a reassessment to see, is this working? Are we having fun? Is this a viable hex crawl style campaign? And if it is, then we can start assembling playtest documents for potentially other people to fuck around with, or make a Kickstarter thing out of it, or just publish the thing as a DTRPG thing. But it's got a ton of potential here. This is really working out. A ton of potential. All right, that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot. I'm going to go ahead and drop out of stream. I'll be off the rest of the day. I'll be working on my Eberron project, the Eberron adventure. I'll be working on edits there. I have Sunday off, so you shan't see me tomorrow. I'll be back Monday morning to continue working on Eberron token and map art. I'll be back on Monday at lunchtime to continue working on the Marshall Powers Rubble Belt West March campaign. And then I'll be back Monday night to continue working on the Vocath battle station. So Yeah. Hopefully I'll see you guys then. See you later.